Welcome to the grim, lawless 23rd century, following the fall of U.S. Gov and mass depopulation of major cities at the hands of the multi-trillionaire de Huberton family. Baptized in radioactive hellfire, a rare mutation makes Turbo a fiercely pumped scrapper, haunted by specters from her past, surviving the post-apocalyptic wasteland one deathmatch pit fight at a time. But when she rescues the stunning trophy girl, the unlikely duo are thrust into a harrowing odyssey, evading marauding berserkers at every turn on their way to the ultimate showdown as they uncover the horrific truth behind the fall of humanity.
And welcome to another exciting episode of Jake and Kurt making Turbo Pit Fighter. And this is a special episode. Not like our spoiler review of Furiosa. This is about setting up a Substack and why you would want to, and speculatively how you would go about doing this. Now, months ago, Jake started having these just absolutely just amazing outputs of written text of story. Here's another email I've received from him. And I said to him in passing on an episode, hey, you should do a Substack, which is Substack, just so you understand, is like blogging and newsletter meeting one-on-one. So if you're ever into blogging or you ran a newsletter like on MailChimp, you put those two together and that's what you have. And so I find it really promotable for the Gardner Francis Fox Library. For the Gardner Francis Fox Library, where every twice a week on Monday and Thursday nights, I give you an entire chapter of an old vintage paperback novel, either written by Gardner Francis Fox or somebody of his contemporaries. So links down below. But today, Jake and I are going to try to hammer out what this Substack should be to keep Jake's creative writing momentum going, as well as his sketches, his doodles, if you were. If you have a copy of our Turbo Pit Fighter teaser number 2, or when you get it, the back page matter is exactly that. And so, you know, the bigger part of the question right out of the gate, before we get way too off of what Jake's wish list is as a creative, I, as a marketer, find this to be right now one of the best non-website sites to work from. You should, if you are an artist, have a website and update it weekly, if not daily. Right. But I'll get into that later. But the thing about the Substack is that you should have something to constantly put who you are and what you're doing out there, so people end up coming across it. They subscribe. They get an email notification when you post something, whether you do it on schedule or not. But as in marketing, it is 1,000 times right now, until Substack changes like every other social media platform has done. MailChimp, Instagram, Facebook, yada, yada, yada.
Right. I've used Post before. I've used Medium before. The thing about Substack is that it really integrates the the email aspect, where it reaches out to people who can subscribe, and you can sign up for updates, and they have free versions and paid versions. So there's a lot of flexibility.
I got into newsletters right when I was reemerging as an artist back, out of the real world job thing. And I was with a friend of mine who is an editor and a half publisher. In other words, he's part owner of a publishing company that does contemporary science fiction, if you will. So I was hanging out at his store, and we were chatting, and I was all excited about that. And he says, oh, you should have a newsletter. And I was like, what do I need a newsletter for? I'll just make these great comic books, and everybody's going to want to buy them, right? He's like, well, things have kind of changed. I'll do a Kickstarter and everybody will give me $1 million. And then, well, let me do that. Things kind of change. And he said this like flat out. He goes, so I have a writer who's been a friend of mine for 20 years. When the computer came, she got on and started doing a newsletter. It was all through email. So there was no newsletter app yet. It was just, she'd collect your email. She would blind CC, BCC, everybody on her newsletter. Within a matter of years, she had accumulated, I think he said, 10,000 emails. And every time she wrote a book, her publishers would come back with, well, how many people are on your newsletter? And she'd be like, oh, I've got, 10,000 people right there. Oh, okay, well, we'll print 1,000 copies of your book. She'd sell out before they would go to print, because what people would do, and this is also pre-PayPal, is they would mail her checks for copies of her book. Now, I knew it was all true because of just the way this individual,
people
this
are
friend of mine,
saying, "What's a check?"
So it's something that I'm bringing up to get everybody to recognize, is that making something and then expecting people just to come and buy it is a dead marketing way and approach. What you need to do is you have to create chatter that draws attention, and then you do what's called a call to action. Call to action would be, hey, I've been sharing this story on my Substack for the last year. I have accumulated over 100 pages of writing and some doodle illustrations. Would you be interested in if I printed a copy? And then all of a sudden you got 70 people or 17 people that say, yeah, I would buy a copy. And you fulfill that for your fan base. And that is really the best way to go about as a creative nowadays, because trying to get out on the open market and through any of these social media platforms to gather enough attention, to maintain that attention in order to get a call to action, to create a return on your investment, is impossible. It's not even near impossible. It's impossible. So, Jake, my first question for you about the Substack is, what is this Substack going to be called? I have made a suggestion. You have also made a suggestion. You have Doom Mags, Substack.com. I have Jake's Journal is my suggestion. But if either one of those are not appealing to you,
yeah, it's probably taken anyway. So I don't know if we need to come up with a final right here, right now. But it's a great question, because you want it to be as descriptive as possible. So people can understand what it is just by hearing the name of it. On the other hand, it's got to be original. It's got to be catchy. You got to be happy with it. I like keeping things as short as possible. So it's an interesting question. And thanks, Kurt, for laying out like a lot of the kind of marketing angles and aspects. Just so people know, like, our division of roles is like, I aspire to just be the content guy, trying to create stuff and come up with the storylines. I have a pretty interesting storyline for this episode called Company Man, and Kurt is talking about a little bit of a 20,000-foot view. It's like, what is the Substack going to be called? How frequently are we going to be able to update it and release installments? Is it going to be a combination of writing and illustrations? Will there be opportunities later to put it into print? All these kind of things. It's all great conversations that we're having. But I wanted to talk about this story and some characters, and introduce some characters. And when I sat down to write the story, it just built itself out into a part of the Turbo World prequel timeline. So I was calling it the End of the World timeline. And when I created a Substack account called Doom Mags, which is short for Doom Magazines. But Kurt's really going to be handling this, and apparently there's no way without like a paid upgrade to have two people access the same Substack. So Kurt is going to be I'm going to be turning all that over to Kurt, and I'm hopefully just going to be writing and drawing, and maybe even inviting some other artists to draw, whether it's sketches, finished art, or, what have you. But yeah, I'm ready to. I sent Kurt this little printout, and I'm ready to jump into it, because as I'm developing the story, this is kind of like a little bit of the how-to. Is how it takes shape. Is you have some stuff worked out, but you have other stuff that's not worked out yet. And if you're collabing on a story with somebody, the other person doesn't necessarily need to be like, all right, well, have it do this, have it do that. The other person really should be like asking questions. Like, you're taking it from the vantage point of a reader. All right, well, how do you get from here to here? Or where does this person come from? What is their motivation? What's the character development here? Like, maybe you need another character here. Like, maybe this should be an amalgam. All those kind of things. But there's a real, back and forth. There's a real like give and take, and I'm anxious to, to get this off the ground, because I think this storyline was coming together, pretty quick, and then I just got to this point where I'm like, all right, I need some action, because if we're gonna be including some illustrations here, what should the illustrations be? What part of it should be illustrated? And so that's why I asked Kurt in, to make this a two-man game here. And, hopefully we can go over that. As you can see, we're just drawing. I'm sketching out some turbo panels here. I'm on page 19 of issue 2, and Kurt is inking issue 1. But we're thinking about this world building, and it's really a prequel timeline, which answers the question, how did the world get this way? That's a frequently asked question that we keep coming back to, an essential question. And the answer is, well, it's the world started to go downhill little by little, more and more, in many different ways, based on the malign actions and the malign influence of this De Huberden family, this one family of multi-trillionaires that really started to take over more and more and more. And, Turbo number 1 has young Turbo and older Turbo. Starting around the 2240s is when young Turbo comes in. And, if we just, rewind a little bit, before Turbo comes along, and we ask the question, how did the world get so messed up? I'm starting to put together some answers. So the big cities are all going to be depopulated through the release of radioactive gas, which comes in by drones. And when all the cities are wiped out, the devastation, and some of it's just going to be like, intact. Like the cities are in good shape, but just like the people died. So it isn't going to be like an atomic bomb where everything is a burned out husk. But there are going to be those cities as well, because wherever there's resistance fighters, right, you might have like armed aircraft come in to try to counter these drones, and they try to take them down. And so there's, firefights in the sky, and, lots of bombs and mini bombs and cluster bombs and all that. So there's going to be all this stuff. But when the body counts, when the devastation has all happened, so all the big cities are taken out, New York, Chicago, Detroit, Philadelphia, like every big city is taken out. So I was like, wow, that's, what do we call that, right? In history, we've had the Holocaust, which was like how many, 6 million people were killed in World War II, maybe like 12 million people. And we think about the apocalypse when a nuclear bomb, falls, that's happened on Japan twice in history. But, when we think about sci-fi stories, what happened if like all of North America was nuclear bombed, well, that would be an apocalypse. So I started calling it the megapocalypse. And I looked online and I was like, well, somebody must have used that before, right? Because they're like combining these words now, like shark and tornado is now sharknado, right? Stuff like that. I looked it up on Google, and there's nobody has megapocalypse. Everybody uses mega dash apocalypse. So I'm wondering if megapocalypse might be a good title to use or a good catchword. I'm going to use it in the story. I'm going to use it in the story for what happens. I don't have the exact year, but it happens sometime, before the 2240s when the Dehubertans, when things really go south, and the Dehubertans get really, really mad about the resistance. So, I'm going to ask Kurt to, you know, to listen and to jump in with questions and queries and prompts and just kind of like guide this through. But we're going to take up this little tale, this little anecdote called the Company Man, at a point in time where the DeHuberton family has some states on board. Sometimes it's a whole state, sometimes it's just a city, but they have this thing called the Fairness Plan, and entire states sign on to it, where you're basically hiring the DeHubertons to run all of your government systems. And the Company Man is going to be about this guy named Hexter, who is a worker for the DeHubertons. And he's considered a company man because he's a good worker, he's a loyal worker, he does what he's asked. And so we're taking the timeline here to 2218, right? And so that's just about 200 years from now or so, right? And Hexter, his job, it's pretty brutal because he is covering a huge territory, and he's the guy that's supposed to come in and fix anytime there's a problem with the highways, waters, sewers, in big infrastructure. It could be like big air conditioning units, or it could be like all these things that the DeHuberton company is contracted to fix for the municipality or the city, and his job is to come in there and do it. And usually there's a long wait. People complain that the service sucks. So he has a very contentious job on his hands, because when he hits the ground in some of these places, people are like knee deep in sewage. There's all this problems, and at the same time he's being pulled in two directions, because the DeHubertons, what they really want, they don't really care about him coming in and fixing stuff. And they have a lot of advanced technology that just automates the repairs anyway, where these little robots scouring things just go in and fix the sewer, and it's done in a matter of time. But they want him to go into these zones and data mine everybody, because they want DNA from as many people as possible to try to find candidates for enhancement. And that is the kind of like subterfuge, because Hexter has a daughter named Rania, and she doesn't know, she knows this is his job, but she doesn't know that he's doing this covert work, and he's data mining everybody. So he needs a sample from every person that he comes in contact with, so that they can analyze it and try to find if these people have this DNA predilection. And if they do, basically, if they're young, basically they get kidnapped. So the DeHubertons are trying to find children, young people, let's say teens and down, who have a certain DNA profile, and then they kidnap them because they want to make them into their super enhanced, servants, whether it's military or scientists or whatever. And Hexter is, even though he's a company man through and through, he comes into a conflict very soon when he discovers that his daughter Rania fits the profile, and he has to cover that up. Otherwise, she'll be taken away. That he knows, because this is like the secret, dirty part of his job, is identifying these people, and he knows that they just disappear after that. He doesn't want that to happen. So he's conflicted, and he becomes a anonymous whistleblower. So now you might ask, who is the resistance in all of this? Because it sounds like the world, they haven't blown up all the big cities yet. And it sounds like the world is still kind of functioning. There's still, schools, and there's still, sewer systems, and there's still contract and municipal, services. But, Hexter is quietly, silently, anonymously reaching out to the resistance. So the resistance is run by Elevena, and Elevena is only 16 years old. I mean, when I say it's run by her, the resistance is autonomous. There's lots of different cults, lots of different groups, but even at age 16, she is the leader of the movement because of her scientific breakthroughs and her ability. She's just way ahead of the bad guys when it comes to science. That means, breaking the code of the nano world, and, she can enhance people. She's way ahead in human enhancements. At age 16, she already has a super squadron, and this is who we're going to name right now. She has already began human trials of enhancements to create women. There's going to be a little team. We're going to call them the rectifiers. And the first one, I think I have it here. Oh, this is on this other page. No, I don't have it here. So the first one is going to be called, she's starting to do, she moved from animal trials of enhancements to human enhancements. And she has 5 women that she's enhanced by the year, let's say by the 2220s. And by 2218, when this story takes place, we're on the 3rd enhanced female from her super squadron. And her name is going to be Pitch Blend. And she's going to be dispatched to rescue Rania. Hexter is going to be putting out a distress call and says that he's getting more and more threats, and he knows that they know that he's a whistleblower. And it's only a matter of time before they send in the goons to take him out. But they're using him first to try to lead them to the resistance. So they have to be very, very careful about their communications and their channels, and everything's like sent and encrypted, to this very secretive helpline called the Dispatch. But basically, he's just going to be saying, like, it's too late for me. I want Rania to go to safety. I want her to go to Elevena's green zone where she can, be taken care of. And she can be enhanced because she meets the profile. So all this is going on, and what I'm trying to do is trying to get some snatches of action, where we can make some spot illustrations here. What should we show? What part of the story should we show?
So you really hit, like, that's so creepy. I don't know what it is about you and I, but last night I was working on something, a comic book related, and a little bit on a prose level too. And the prose was obviously a lot more word heavy, and you want to translate. And the thing I thought about was, how do you abstract action out of like really good descriptive prose? Now, I have no answer for you, other than we had mentioned this off air. I'm not afraid to mention it too. is you can prompt ChatGPT for that. And I did do that for my Crom and the Warlock of Sharador prose story where I did inset spot illustrations. Now, the 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 thing is that as an illustrator primarily, I'm way more excuse me, image driven than I am word driven because I have dyslexia and ADD. Um, so to answer your question, and this is just what's popped into my head when you asked me to come up with action based on just what you said in prose, is I think that's where the illustration has to be something that's not in the prose. But when you put those two things together, the reaction is literally like it's explosive because prose functionally for me is a very kind of beautiful thing to help me understand something. But really all I want are just the juicy, cool artwork, and illustrations. And one of the things I've follow in illustrating prose to the best of my ability is N.C. Wyeth is one of the reigning kings of the golden age of book illustration. He was taught by the grandfather, if you will, Howard Pyle. I live in Wyeth country, so Chadds Ford is just over the state line for me. And I visit, and I'm a member of the Brandywine River Museum. One of the reasons N.C. Wyeth's illustrations became so popular in the beginning is he had a thing where when he read the book, he wanted to make an illustration that could be inserted into the book. In other words, he didn't want to take this passage of text and make a picture of it. He wanted to, with his own emotional feeling, put an illustration in there. And when you read Treasure Island, for instance, there are two illustrations in there that there's no scene. That's not a scene. But the impact of showing the character, like Blind Pew, for instance, coming down the dirt muddy road from the town, it's like, it's just so more impactful than just, let's do a picture of Hexter, or let's do a picture of his daughter, or let's make a picture of this thing. That's still all and good, but that picture should be, so can you pull up the illustration of the bodysuit with the captive on strapped to the front of it?
Oh, well, that's
I want to, yeah. So this is an amazing, like let's call it a sketchy illustration. If that was used to illustrate this short text of prose, I think there's something more expansive and questioning than just giving the reader all the answers that you think they should expect and acquire by reading your material. That I know because we talked about it on the last episode or last two episodes of Making Turbo, where go ahead and explain that again, just one more time. Just explain that illustration.
This is a part of the story where there's kind of like a gender war in a particular era and geographical, area. And this has to do with one of the Hubberton sons, who's kind of like this, kind of like flamboyant Hugh Hefner type guy. And he becomes the greatest manufacturer and corners the market on pleasure robots. But they also have a division of war robots at the same time, that are built for, close quarters, hand to hand combat. You can see like there's a whole bunch of like machine guns here and cutters and everything. But they because the cruelty is the point, they wanted to strap a female prisoner, that they've taken from the other side onto the front of the suit, and every one of these, robots will be kind of like protected unless they want to sacrifice, unless the other side wants to just fire on them and just destroy them. So this is kind of like, I mean, it's kind of inspired by some of the Road Warrior, guerrilla tactics that you see in the Road Warrior series.
Right.
But but it's also kind of like pseudo sexual domination,
Oh
kind of
yeah, it's charged.
overtones.
But my point would
Yeah,
be, my point is that if that was used as an inset illustration to this block of text, which is called, um, company
the
man
company man,
explanation segment to, megalopolis, a mega
megapocalypse.
mega apocalypse. The what you I would even have a smaller amount of text underneath the illustration that would,
Caption.
caption what you just said, because this is the thing I am very forceful with marketing and artists. You can't give them everything. The moment you give everything as a nice, neat little package, people will accept it and they will go away and look for more. But if you give them something and they go, well, what's this? I kind of get it. And what the fuck is this? I don't understand. Well, you better come back next week. And
Right.
if they are, if once again, this is what annihilates the whole concept that I will make a perfect package and everybody will want a copy of it. It's so dead because everybody's moving in a doom scrolling way to get to something else. But the marketing this is going to do is for indie, black and white, post-apocalyptic. Let's even vintage paperback sci-fi. In whether you're in the comic books or not, this is some juicy stuff you most definitely would want to see in a book. So all I have to do is subscribe to the Substack to just keep getting the little rotation in. When I said I want you to have a Substack to journal this kind of stuff, I want it to be exactly the way I think you work. And correct me if I'm wrong. You have stated that you come home you drive home, you turn on a recorder, and you go whip for company man in the grim lawless 20th blah 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 blah. Hector out. You do this vocal dumping into a recorder, which then can transcribe into some text that you can then later put it out. But then at another time, your image generating brain goes, oh wow, that'd be cool. That suit being like this, and then the slave girl or captive girl being on the front. Oh, let me do it. And as I asked you off camera prior, it's like, how long does it take for you to make a sketch in consideration of just that? Like, nobody would ever see it. And you were like, I can do things 10 minutes or 20 minutes. If it only took you 20 minutes to make that sketch or less, those two things weekly is what you should be posting, because that stuff will all then get built up into a year's worth of posts that then you can sort out and kind of calibrate and collect this over here and collect this over here and make a little bit more sense. But the attraction of the Megalopolis Substack is I'm going to get an email that's going to have two things in it from one of my favorite post-apocalyptic sci-fi comic book artists, which just you, Jacobs, is a cool ass sketch that took you less than 20 minutes to make, and a block of text that it's feeding my imagination.
Yeah. So the well the, so that's fine. That's great. I just want to know, like, how to finish up this first installment,
It's done.
because a lot
It's
of the
already.
rest,
It's
the re-
done. It's done. Now to answer your question, what kind of action illustration should accompany this? That's your responsibility when you have the time to do a 20-minute sketch. Just sketch something. Don't try to perform making a product. That's what I want to keep you away from. I want things to come out as raw as possible. What the hell is that?
So this
What the hell?
this is when Rania
Oh god.
eventually go.
Oh, well, give your
This
answer.
is when
Jesus.
this is when Pitch Blend eventually goes into rescue Rania, and
Okay.
the shit hits the fan, and
Once again,
Hector's
how
gonna
long
have a
did it
big.
take you to sketch that?
I don't know. It isn't just like one sit down and do it,
Okay,
because
that's fine. You don't have to
when
be
I have these
a 1 20 minute sit down sketch. That's fine.
well when I have these when I'm doing stuff on these purple pads,
Yeah.
these are Jack Richardson. That means I'm in school and I'm
Okay.
like, administering a task or something, and
Right.
so I'm sketching, but I looking up, and I might be in a meeting, and I'm like, doodling a little bit, but I have to like pay attention. So I don't know exactly how long it takes, but this is going to be when Pitch Blank comes in, and she's coming into dehuberton territory, which means it's controlled by the RM, and she needs to get this kid out, without, number one, without them knowing that she is a candidate for enhancement, and number two, without knowing that she is enhanced, because even more important than her being able to get in and get out and rescue this kid is that they can't know, that Elevena has already enhanced, a bunch of. Well, she's only the second one, third one. So I found the installment here in the. I have this on my hellclaw.com, but 2217, Elevena enhanced Charvel. She was the first, and in June, that was in January of 2017. In June, Shadow was enhanced. And that means, just like, imagine steroids, but they really change your body like over a matter of weeks and months to be stronger, faster, better, but not just your not just your muscles and your physical ability, but also your brains. And then in December of 2217, Pitch Blend was the third one who was enhanced. And part of the deal is that they're part of Elevena's super squadron, and the number one priority that they have is to try to go out and locate the candidates for enhancement before the dehubridans do. And so it's like kind of a race. And the dehubridans, they have a lot of control over populations. So every time they have contact with somebody, like a company is interacting with people on the ground, they take a sample and they scan them. And so Elevena doesn't have that because she's in a safe state, which like we call a green zone, and they're relying on people to send in their own samples, to say that to show they can get a free screening by just sending us a scan of your DNA over the dispatch. So once they find that, they go out and find them, but they're rare, they're very rare, and far between. Obviously Turbo is born with these qualities later on, but this is going to be this is going to be the rescue mission, where Pitch Blend is going to come in and rescue Rania, bring her back to Elevena's green zone. And Hexter, the story's called Company Man because Hexter realizes that he had a decent life relative, to the, bad things that were going on. He had his own house. He didn't have to live in crowded quarters, like most people did. Um, and his daughter was able to attend a school, which was a privilege at that time, at that point in time, that not everybody, can get. And in exchange, he was working for the Dehubridans as this kind of regional supervisor, but he also had this covert mission where he was data mining people, and they would get, kidnapped if they met the profile. So he has guilt, but it wasn't until his own daughter, that he was facing, the disappearance of his own daughter, where he realized that he had to do something. And then there's going to be a couple of steps, just like a good plot, where things just ratchet up more and more. First, he's going to get threats. Then he's going to, find out that they're on to him. Then he's going to, elevate the distress, that where he's asking for help from the resistance and Elevena. And then, just when things are at their worst, Pitchblende is going to come in and extract the kid. And so some questions that have come up are going to be, how does she come in? How does she leave the safe green zone and come in, in this world of advanced technology, weaponry, and security? How does she come in and get out, right? What is the vehicle, right? Do they have flying motorcycles then? Is this a ground thing? Like what, it's 200 years from now. So what is going to be the transportation? That's a question that I haven't answered yet. What are
And
going
you
to
will
be?
eventually with the Substack. You will eventually get there in the
Yeah, that's
Substack.
what.
That's the beauty.
Yeah,
That's the beauty of following the Substack, is that whether you state you don't know how that's going to get solved or injected into the storyline, your responsibility as the creator is over time, and one of the things I believe you and I do similarly as creatives that makes it easiest for us to collaborate is, as much as we want linearness in our creativity,
yeah,
the output is always in different stages. In other words, you start with the ending, and then you go to the middle, and then you go to the place between.
yeah.
You
You
know
can
what I mean?
see,
Like
you can,
you don't
you can see
start page
the
one, panel
process.
one. Neither one of us starts page one, panel one. And there's always so much more excitement getting yourself written into a corner where then you're like, shit, how am I going to get out of there? But then when you go back to everything else that you've made, you can go, well, if I change this and I flip this, and then there you go. That's how that thing will come into play. That makes the most sense. It's the forcedness that I feel so often in what's being made out there in this linearly, it's
Linearly.
linearly movement in art, and especially comic books nowadays.
Linear,
That
yeah.
I don't even finish most of the stuff because I'm like, I know how this is going to end. It's just, and the
Yeah.
art's not. It's not engaging. It's dying as it's moving along because it's got to get to print because somebody's got to pay the phone bill, grocery bill, or their rent. So, I still feel the momentum. I believe you'll be in a couple of weeks from now, definitely by the end of summer, is one where you're like, oh, cool. Every Sunday morning before I get on with Kurt, I'm going to send him my text and the 5 sketches I made, and
Right.
let me do uh, uh, the arrangement, curating of
Yeah.
that, and then just let it post, because you might get pissed off at me and be like, why would you put those two fucking things together? I don't know. It just seems rational to me looking from the outside in. Then once you get over being upset with me, you can then say, oh, wait a second, that's kind of interesting because I didn't think this. And that's, once
Well,
again, it's one of the
yeah.
beauties
I'm
of
kind
being
of
creative.
Yeah, and I'm kind of a Zen guy, right? I have this story. I have another sketch I'm going to show you, but I have this story, and then Kurt's all of a sudden like, "Oh, bring in that thing with the robo suit, with the captured, prisoner," and I'm like, "Well, okay." I mean, you have some kind of vision for like, an installment that could be captivating and raise a lot of questions. I just want you to know that this whole like um, subplot is turmoil on the planet of the sex of the pleasure robots, pleasure
That's
bot. I
that's
have I have this entire treatment already right here of that. Uh, that was written in 1993. It goes a little bit far, but I have all of this kind of like blocked out in in sequential form,
Right.
where
Right.
it's like this whole backstory, and it goes on and on and
Right.
on and on. So with some other characters that
So
are like central,
just to
but
recap, stop making product,
yeah,
journal, keep yourself, not even get yourself, because I know you're always there. Keep yourself in a healthy output, creative
because we're
flow.
in,
And especially since
yeah.
you have summertime, do that. Now, to defend myself, once again, as I had stated prior, it doesn't matter that the illustration of the robot suit with the captured woman on the front is not from even the same storyline. We can put a caption
No,
underneath it,
I'm listening
but
to you. I'm
the thing
listening.
about it is that it causes a relationship that makes it more interesting to subscribe and follow to the next one. I'm not trying
Right,
to.
and
I don't.
no, yeah. So and for me, it's bringing up, because I'm very zen. I go with the flow. Sure, all right, let's do it like that. But on the other hand, it makes me think, like, wow, how does this world comport with that world, right? I mean, these are not separate stories, really.
No,
This
exactly.
is the world. This is the world that they live in. There is a breakdown of society because men are no
It's the
longer
world
hooking up
you
with
live
women.
in, Jake. It's the world you live in. The moment you start segregating, no, I'm not even being funny. It's the moment we try to segregate things to make it easy and palatable for other people to consume, you've turned it into a bowl of shit. When you do all the
Well, that's
work, when you do
what.
all the work for them, there's nothing attaching somebody to it, especially when you're on the ground level we're at in indie black and white comic books. We don't have a lot of people to choose from, but I feel like the people who are into this type of work are also into thinking for themselves, having an opinion, also generating their own ideas, because you often bring, as well as I do, the opportunity of collaboration. If these two
Yeah.
things, if that little illustration in this block of text is somewhere, and artist B comes in and says, shit, man, I could take those two things and make this kind of little thing. I wonder if they would have any interest in it. Well, God bless. Thank you, artist B. Because that's what we're trying to make happen. Are we going
Right.
to pay
Or for
you? Are we going to
readers.
pay you a ton of money? If not, so on and so forth. That's for another part. The thing that's dying on the vine is this flow of creativity. Just, if you're in that river, let go and run down, just float down and keep gathering all this great stuff. Post it. Oh, why are you giving your ideas away? Because they're not your ideas. They're ideas that come to you. You manifest them into some sort of package, if you will, or containment. And I'll use that better than package, a containment unit. And then you get it out there. And we
Yeah.
only have, and I know, and I'm preparing myself mentally and emotionally, every Sunday when you're not in school. But now that you're free and you have 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, I'm probably going to get 16 text messages a day. Should I do this? Why should I not? And I'm trying to circumnavigate that to, Jake, just be you, Jake. It's anything you create is going to be one world. It's your world. It's Jake's world. And you have the sense of you. The two things you gravitate always to is, well, there's three. The first is the science fiction, and it being, of your own amalgamation. Then there's the apocalypse. It's the social decline of
Megapocalypse.
society, megapocalypse. And then it's strong female characters. So just stay in that flow. Title it something
Yeah.
like this, and then we'll maybe connect it 10 years down the road. We're in this for the long haul, you and I. And we have a history together. We both know each other. We both love and care for each other more than anything that's going to come about in, who owns more rights than the other for the movie and the animation. But it's all good. It's all good. I
Right.
want you and everybody else that's gotten this far into the video to appreciate, when it comes to your creativity. Stop thinking product. Get out of it. When you feel like you're like, oh, well, people won't. Oh, fuck people. It's you. It's you. It's you. It's you. And then you get it up on a little Substack and hope and pray to God you get subscribers. But when you get a couple of subscribers, you got to write for those couple of subscribers. No longer are you writing to the massive world that is not subscribed to you. I have on the Gardner Francis Fox Library 156 subscribers. 67 to 80 of them open my emails. It doesn't mean that they can't get to my Substack via other subscriptions, which I think is also a very cool aspect to Substack, is that I can enter another subscription to the Substack platform and then check my notifications and go, oh shit, Jake Jacobs just did another fucking thing. I didn't read that email. I was on the subway. Fuck. Cool. Let me go and check out what Jake is doing. So when I only have, people might be like, only 156 people. Dude, I do everything I can to keep them happy. Not the world. And I something I started doing 3 months ago was based on one comment somebody said, which was, I was only posting chapter ones. And somebody said, I would love to read the rest of this book by chapter. And then I put a poll up and I said, would anybody else like to? And I got like, I don't know, 10 or 11 people that voted yes for it. No voted no's. No. And I did it. And it's a very big success right now because people go to my website and download copies of the books. So that's how it's done nowadays. It's not done on this mega level. And so when you're thinking, oh, I got to make it so people are accessible. Now, just make it and let's get it up. And a year from now, let's talk about something. We'll talk about the next thing.
Right in. So so it's great that Kurt is grappling with all these issues, how to release it, what people are thinking.
By the way, this is a majority of my my business is I work with artists and helping them structure these types of things.
But I also really work well off of feedback too.
We all do, Jake. We all do. Yeah. My feedback to you right now is you've got a year's worth of posts to get out there, which means you got to collect enough writing and these thumbnail sketches, doodles to get up to get people to start subscribing to your Substack. That's it. There's nothing else you're allowed to do. Nothing. We're going to continue talking about it on the Making Turbo episodes. That's what it is. And we bring up all types of storylines. If not only your like a B movie She Devils is a thing we have in the works that we've released nothing about, but we keep mentioning that. I'm entering a public domain world where I have Crom the Barbarian, which I don't claim any ownership to. This book, 140 pages of my art, Gardner Fox, John Junta, and Jack Katz, and some prose, is all about a player book. It's a player's handbook guide to getting into drawing your own Crom the Barbarian, which, by the way, is a blonde-haired, skinnier version of Conan the Barbarian. But here's a whole bunch of fun stuff. And that's what I'm hoping for, because I want collaborations, more and more of them. But I want them done on a level that's more honest and committed to the creative process than the product. So that's all I got. We're over 45 minutes. We like to keep these episodes bite-sized, which means we allow people to get back to reading comics, making them if they do. Jake, what an exciting episode. You took a lot to convince me to do it. I'm glad we did it. But do you have anything for them on the way out?
Yes, on the way out, I'd like to tease this other sketch. It's this is going to be something we'll talk about on a future episode. But these are going to be the sentient domes with the giant Gundam Guardian and all of the wind and solar energy that it takes to create this city. This is going to be the prison where Elevena is housed after she eventually surrenders. So we are bouncing around the timeline. It's 100-year timeline plus maybe like a 150-year timeline where all these characters that we're going to have Esoterra, Elevena, and then finally Turbo, that lead up to this world, explain how the world gets messed up. And it's going to be fun, coming up with all the details, especially on the dehuberted.
I'm having a blast.
The dehuberted side. Yeah, we got one thing we got to catch up on is because I'm creating this cast of characters on the resistance side, but the dehuberted side we don't have enough. We have the unbeknownst one, who is going to be like the main dehuberted heir when Turbo's an adult. and when she's a youth. Um, but what about before that? We need like his parents and grandparents and that whole like kind of milieu to be fleshed out. And I know that we have the pleasure robot guy, the war. But who else is there going to be? And we know that there's going to be one really, really bad guy that marries a woman who will become one of the most important sentients later, who's secretly and psychically aiding the resistance by making flying peas. So there's a lot. There's a lot to this. I keep coming back to it. Maybe some of it is starting to resonate, but
Jake, once again, I just have to thank you for calling me out of the blue, asking me if I want to get back to working on a comic book together, and also spending every Sunday afternoon just being, I mean, absolutely the most creative we can be. And if you've made it this far as a viewer, thank you very much. We consider what's called a turbo knot, and stick with us, subscribe, do all that fun, fancy stuff. We'll have that Substack up real soon, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, and by the way, folks, everything's gonna be true. This is all gonna be real, unfortunately. So,
all right, I will definitely see you next time.
Preparing you for it. Gird your loins.
All right,
see you, Kurt.
See you, dude.